My guest today is Annette St. Onge, who is the Director of Operations at Neste Live, a prominent co-venture partnership with Live Nation. Now, with a distinguished career spanning various roles, Annette brings unparalleled expertise in the music industry, and her extensive background includes serving as a booking agent, venue and festival talent booker, and live event specialist. But her current role as VP of Corporate Live Events and Talent Bookings at Neste Live further highlights her leadership and strategic acumen. Now, Annette's multifaceted experience not only showcases her deep understanding of the live music scene, but also positions her as a key figure in shaping the future of live entertainment. Her insights into industry trends, event management, and artist relations would make for a compelling conversation, which we're about to have today. So let's welcome our guest, Annette St. Onge, to the show. Welcome, Annette.
Thank you, Ward. I'm very excited to be here. One quick correction, I'm not VP yet, but someday I will be. I'm just director right now, but we're going to manifest that for 2025, right?
That's what we're going to do. We're going to manifest that right now, so we'll see what happens. And those at Neste Live and Live Nation, listen up. Your next VP is right here. So,
Fingers crossed.
well, tell me, how in the world did you get into the entertainment industry?
Yeah. Do you want the long journey or the short one?
Oh, whatever you're comfortable with.
So I am one of those who ended up in entertainment because I was such a fan. My whole life from a young age, I loved music. I loved going to shows. I vividly remember my very first concert. It was Charlie Pride at the Montana State Fair when I was 4 years old in 1989. And for a 4 year old, remembering a show is kind of not super normal, but I loved him so much and I was so excited to hear him sing Snakes Crawl at Night. Like as a 4 year old, that was my favorite song. And born and raised Central Montana, not exactly an entertainment mecca, but the Montana State Fair was our local fair. So my sisters and I did 4-H. We would always have projects in the fair. And that was the 1 week of the year that we got to go to concerts because it was like feast or famine. You had 5 nights of shows at the state fair and then nothing again until the following summer. So we would almost always buy tickets for the state fair shows. Typically, it was country music. And those were like the highlight of summer before we went to school, getting to see all these people we heard on the radio. And from that age, I just had this fascination. Like I wanted to be at these shows. I wanted to know what's happening. And then I would say kind of the catalyst to get me here, as corny as this sounds, was some folks will remember George Strait starring in the movie Pure Country in the early 90s. And I remember watching that, and it was the first time that I remember being able to see behind the scenes of the show, right? Because they take you backstage, there's buses, you're seeing the roadies load in, you're seeing all this stuff that happens. And the most prominent thing to me was his manager, Lula Rogers, was a girl. And I said, wait, girls can do this? That's interesting. And so I just absolutely loved that she was like in charge, this powerful woman. And I'd up until that point only seen women performing, not on the backside. And so that kind of just planted those seeds from a young age. And as I got older, I like volunteered to be an usher at the shows at the state fair as a teenager because I just wanted to be there and work. And I got to college, and I was very fortunate that at my university, the University of Montana, we had an entertainment management program that was founded by 7 Montana natives who all went to school there and all made their way in the music industry. And in 2000 decided to give back and help kids in Montana who maybe wanted an opportunity to work in music not have to claw their way up like these guys did in the 70s and 80s. And so they created a program in conjunction with the School of Business there where you could actually get a certificate of entertainment management. So I got to college not really knowing what I wanted to do, knew that I loved music, and I find out about this program. And as I'm looking into it, I find out that you don't just have a professor for the semester. These agents and managers and promoters and artists are flying into Missoula and teaching classes on the weekend. And I was like, sign me up. I'm there. I'll do it. Let's go. So I did that in college while starting working at a student run production company where I was working security, working merch, being a runner, helping with marketing, just anything I could do to get a free show, really. Because, broke college kids, I'm like, free show, I'll work. Let's do it. So I wrap up in Missoula. I'm at the time working at the box office at the university, and I'm going to shows. And I remember I was at a Dierks Bentley show, and I'm having the time of my life. And I got home that night, and I just said to myself, I just need to go to Nashville. Like, I just need to move. And I had considered LA, I'd considered New York, but I'm a plan B person. And I was like, if the whole music industry thing doesn't work out, where am I probably going to have A, the easiest transition moving from Montana to a city, and B, a good quality of life if I don't end up in the industry? So fortunately, I had some mentors that I'd met through the entertainment management program. And I said to them, I want to move. How can I get a job? Like, how can I get a job in the mailroom at WME or, at a label? And the best advice that was given to me was, what's going to make someone believe that you're going to move 2,000 miles across the country for an entry level job when there's kids at Belmont knocking on the door that can start tomorrow? Stop worrying about getting a job, get here, and then worry about the job. So after that conversation, I picked a date, told my family I'm moving. I don't think any of them believed me. Sold everything I owned, packed it into my little Mercury Sable, and I drove by myself across the country to Nashville, sight unseen, never visited beforehand. I was just like, I'm doing it. I was 25, right? Why have a plan? Let's just go on the adventure. So I moved here and started making friends with people that were working in the industry. Luckily, I had a few friends from Montana that were here. And I ended up working in banking because I knew until I kind of had my feel in Nashville, I didn't really want to jump into the industry. So I was like, okay, I have a degree in business. What could I do that's a job that's related, but I'm also going to meet the people who are in the industry? So I only applied at jobs in affluent neighborhoods in Nashville at banks. And I ended up at a bank in Belle Meade. And if you're from Nashville, Belle Meade is one of the most affluent neighborhoods with a lot of rich history. Ended up in a bank there. And my first music industry boss was my bank client that I'd worked with for 2 years, that when a job came open and he knew what I wanted to do, he said, why don't you come talk to my partner and I think we got something for you. And here we are, 15 years later, still in Nashville, making it work. And that's the journey that got here. It was truly just,
I
you
love
call
it.
it an essential Nashville story, but I'm like, it's the drive and the passion and just the desire to do it and do what it takes to get here. So
Yeah, I love the step of faith of stepping out with no safety net whatsoever. You're going for it. But I'm like you. I love the behind the scenes. I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking back one of my favorite times because I had developed this rock television show here in Houston, and my favorite thing was being on site, like behind the scenes at the House of Blues when there's a music festival going on, and you have two cell phones and a notepad, and you're dealing with the managers and the tour managers, getting the acts lined up for interviews. I just love the multitasking that everything takes for it to work and to come to pass. And then at the end, the result is like, wow, look what we just pulled off. So I understand that
absolutely.
passion and love that you have for it. So I get it. So
Yeah, I mean that truly is, and it's one of those things that I'm like, it's almost like once you go through it, it's in your blood, and you're like, oh, we can pull it off. It's like the oh my gosh, we did it, and that's still to this day after however many shows I've worked on. The show comes down, the lights go down, the trucks and buses leave, and I'm like, we did it, we pulled it off. It's
well,
still
okay.
just as exciting as it was.
Well, let's do this. What is Neste Live and what do they actually
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. Neste Live, I'll give you two answers. So the industry answer is we are a full service talent buying and event production company, and we also offer expertise in event sponsorships, event marketing. But to put it simply, we are talent buyers that are a little unique to what a talent buyer typically is in the industry, because a lot of times you're booking the shows for a specific venue and you're the talent buyer for that venue. We are talent buyers for end clients. So I compare it to real estate, right? Someone wants to buy a house. They know there's an MLS listing. They know they can do a showing, but they don't know who to contact to do the showing. They don't know how to put an offer in. They're not sure what kind of permits and stuff they need. So they go to a realtor to help them. We're the realtor of music. Clients come to us, they have a budget, they have an event they want to do, they want entertainment, that they maybe don't know how to reach out to artist teams or who on the team to reach out to, and then what needs to go into the offer and how contracts work, and then the planning portion, or sometimes they don't even know who do we get sound and lights from? Where do we get the stage? So we can do just the talent portion. We can help with the actual event production portion. And then for the larger scale events that have, marketing and sponsorship needs, we have people who can offer expertise and insight into that to really kind of guide all of the pieces. But we're really a liaison between the end client and the artists and their teams, where we're sort of passing the info back and forth and making it all come together and making everyone, have a great time and a good show.
Wow, that is a major undertaking. Now, I understand that Neste Live is a Live Nation company. What's the difference between the two operations?
Yeah, so I think most people at this point have heard of Live Nation. Live Nation is, I think the world's leading live entertainment company with offices and venues around the world. And Live Nation truly is an international operation. Neste Live started as a small family run company in Brentwood, Tennessee in 1995 that really built this amazing company and kind of got the attention of Live Nation. And so in 2019, Live Nation acquired majority stake ownership in Neste Live. And so we're part of the overarching umbrella, but we still kind of operate as an individual business unit. And it's really nice because as far as our day-to-day business, it's still really similar. Like we kind of still have that, family-run company feel, building these relationships with long-standing clients. But then we have this amazing company that has resources for us. If there's, questions on contracts, or if we need a little help, like we have the resources that as a small company you would have to like go out and find and pay for, and we have that built in. It's almost like we're kind of cousins, like we're all part of the family, but we sort of do our own thing, but we come together when we need to. I think that's the easiest way to explain the relationship between us.
Well, so if Neste Live puts on this big, massive event, I guess Live Nation's handling the ticket sales, right?
It really just depends because, like I said, a lot of our events we're doing, it's with an end client. So the end client is deciding who's going to be doing ticketing, how they're selling that. We do have a couple festivals we do within Neste Live, but even that, we're truly producing A to Z. And Live Nation is just a stakeholder in it, but they really truly support us and let us kind of handle the business in the way that we've always done. It's great.
So how long have you been with Neste Live?
I've been here just shy of a year and a half, but I had worked with some of the Nesty Life folks in past careers, so I've known them for about a decade in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, the greatest thing about the entertainment industry, it's all about connections.
Absolutely.
And that's how you move up the ladder.
It truly is. And I always say, I'm like, the music industry is the biggest small community imaginable, because no matter where I go, no matter what city I'm in, I can say someone's name that someone has worked with, and we're like, oh, we of course we know the same people. So it really is kind of just like a true family network of people that all just have happened upon this crazy world we all do business in.
Yeah, and what better place than have it all based in Nashville, because it's just a huge
Yeah.
community, a huge music community. Now, I understand that with Neste Live, they book entertainment for music festivals, state fairs, even speedways like Charlotte and Texas Motor Speedway. I believe y'all even work with Coda. There in Austin where the Formula One race is, and of course, corporate and private events. What does the process look like for a talent buyer when you are just one piece of a massive puzzle?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So yeah, all of the things you listed, we do that and more. That's the beauty of sort of being the talent buyer where we're servicing an end client. It's like they come to us with the event and we make it happen. And the race at Coda, that's part of the Speedway event. So it's like the one NASCAR event they have at the Coda track. That's we look for that. But when you really zoom out and look at it as far as like what's our piece in this puzzle, I kind of liken it to just sort of looking at it as a business model because a lot of times we get so kind of ingrained in the details of this being music industry and it feels like this kind of foreign cool groovy thing and I'm like at the end of the day it's a music industry like industry is business so we have to know the business acumen behind it and it's exactly what you said. I'm like, we are in the relationships business. Like, we are not only servicing our end client and kind of acting in a customer service and sales capacity with them, but we also have to know all the details of their event because we need to know demographic. What's your timeline? Who have you had in the past? What's worked well, what's not? So we are learning the client. And then on the flip side of that, we're an extension of the artist's sales team because we have to know all of the agents and who's on their roster and if those artists are available for this date. And so we're kind of walking that fine line between the two worlds where we're almost part of the team on both sides. And it's our job to really kind of filter through all of the information to present what really feels like it's best for the end client and make sure they have the knowledge necessary to make a really good decision for what will work for their event. And then we also make sure that we have these really good relationships with agents because it's like if you book an artist and you love that artist, you know, they did a great job, the client was happy, their team was easy to work with, of course you want to keep working with them. So it really is kind of just like building this massive Rolodex in your brain of always knowing who's trending, who's on the rise right now that we really think is going to take off next year. Because if we're planning an event today, it might not happen for 12 months. So we also have to have the client trust that when we say, look, I know you haven't really heard of this artist, but we are very confident by this time next year when your event happens, everyone's going to know them. They're putting a lot of faith in us, in our guidance to say, yeah, okay, let's go, let's do that artist. So it's really fun to kind of be that intermediary between the two worlds.
You know, my father-in-law used to host concerts in Houston, and you would always have to book the acts a year in advance, just so you know that
Mm.
you have them, so you could use them to promote your event. They're available. You can sign them. But when we were all coming out of the pandemic, you know, all the artists, nobody was allowed to tour. So when it was over, how was the whole scheduling put back into place? Because a lot of them hit the road immediately. Maybe it was dates that were kind of planned a year ahead, and those dates were still on the books, and they got lucky. But what about the ones to where they had to completely start over? Were they allowed to hit the ground running, or did they have to wait another year uh, when they got scheduled for maybe a festival or a concert tour?
Yeah. So at that point, I was in a slightly different capacity through the pandemic and post pandemic. I also am an entrepreneur. I'm that person that always needs to be doing something, and if there's nothing to do, I'll make a job for myself. So when the pandemic ended, or when the pandemic started, I had been working as a corporate talent buyer, and I've been doing talent buying in the corporate and private event space. But I also had a small boutique artist management company where I was managing local and regional talents who played private events, and they played everything from galas and fundraisers to weddings. Well, fortunately for us, weddings were one of the first things that came back because as soon as restrictions were lifted, people wanted to have their wedding. But we had clients who, by the time the bands played their event, this was the third event date, right? They'd canceled in July of 20, and then they got it rescheduled for October, but then there was another restriction in place. So then they rebooked the band for March of the next year. And so we saw a lot of that just with really having to kind of go against everything you normally do, where there's a cancellation, and then it's like these are people. We're all in this together. No one is controlling this. No one's just deciding to cancel a show. Like we're being told you can't have public gatherings. And so on our side at that time, we really kind of were just figuring it out as we went. And like I said, we were fortunate that weddings came back quickly. So the artists I was working with at the time, they were working again before touring artists were because weddings came back. Like I think our first cancellation was like end of March 2020, and then their first wedding they played was July 4th of 2020. So they only had a 3 month gap with absolutely no gigs. And then, it was intermittent from there. But I think on the touring side, it was likely just the same because it's like, okay, we everything's lifting, it's looking good, but then we'd have another wave and we'd have to cancel stuff. And I really feel like that's why coming out of the pandemic, I know myself, I know my friends, like we were hungry for live music. Shows were back. Shows were selling out. Artists are going on the road. And I think we kind of had that just like post pandemic boom of the arts are back, live music's back, let's do this. And then I think right now we're kind of seeing what reality is, where it's sort of like, okay, the initial boom has leveled, where are we really sitting? So it's definitely one of those things though that you can never plan for that. So truly
Yeah.
just figuring it out as you go is the only way you can really do it.
Yeah, and it was funny because, and you're right, there was this post-pandemic boom. Everybody went on tour immediately because some of them they were actually off a year based on depending on album release, the way the tours were. Some bands toured Europe before they toured the U.S. But one of the things that shocked me in the big post-pandemic boom when it came to concerts, there were bands that were getting ready to go on tour, had to cancel the tour because every tour bus was completely leased out. The bus companies didn't have enough buses for everybody to go back on tour at the same time. So some of them had to wait 6 months to almost a year until either the bus company bought new buses and then got them built for touring, or they had to wait till one came available. And that was one of the strangest things, one of the strange stories that I heard. But it happens because if it's everything is shut down, everything is sitting idle, but then it's first come, first served the moment you're out the door.
Right. Yeah, supply and demand. And suddenly that demand went from nothing to everyone wanting a bus all at the same time.
So for you, and for Neste Live, what does it take to put on a large scale event like a festival? And what is your favorite part?
Yeah, so I kind of dipped my toes into, I would say like micro festivals compared to what Nesty Live does. But when I worked at Fontanelle, which was a music venue outside of Nashville that is no longer in operation, but it was an outdoor amphitheater. So when I was there, that was my first experience of really kind of building out a venue out of nothing. Like we had the cement of the stage. And other than that, when concert season started, we built the entire infrastructure out. And then 12 weeks later, when concert season ended, you tore it down, put it into storage, and did it all again the next year. Festivals are very similar, but you are building it out and tearing it down in 10 days. And it is instead of the, 4,500 seat amphitheater we had, you're doing a festival that's 10 to 25, 30,000 people. So it's one of those things that as someone who's always been a fan and who's gone to festivals, you just experience it and you're like, oh yeah, everything's great. And then seeing it on the veil is lifted and you see behind the curtain and you're like, oh my gosh, every single thing I'm looking at is someone's job. Because before the festival comes in, this is an empty piece of land most of the time where festivals are held. So I look at that and I'm like, you walk in and there's fencing. Someone had to order and put up that fencing. As far as when you're driving in, there's an ingress and egress traffic plan that you have to do with either the city or the local police or the highway patrol and get your permits and get approval on those. And that's just getting into the venue. And it's like, okay, then you have to do parking and someone has to figure out how many cars can we fit in all of these. And you're doing all of those estimations. And I'm like, we've only parked it. We're not even in the venue yet. And you get to the venue, someone's scanning tickets, which means someone had to build out how many tickets can we sell in each of these areas. And when you really start to drill down on all of the tiny little elements that go into make one of these productions, it is absolutely a labor of love because it truly is. You're building something out of nothing, and you're bringing in generators because our concession vendors aren't going to have lights and be able to keep their food warm if we don't have a generator because there's no electricity. And you're bringing in the porta johns, and then you're building out a stage and carting everything in. And where are you going to house all your employees if this is a festival in the middle of nowhere? So you're getting RVs or hotels or whatever it is. And I look at that now because I have such a hard time just going and enjoying shows now. I'm always like looking around, seeing what people are doing. But it's amazing to me because we know how much work goes into it and how many elements have to happen for it to come together and for it to appear to be seamless. And that's exactly what I said earlier. That's the wow, we pulled it off. Look at that. Everyone had a great time. Everyone sang along, and they're already gone. And it's almost like in a blink of an eye, you go from building it to tearing it down. And it always amazes me that load out takes so much less time than load in. So you're building it for days, and then it's gone in a day, and you're like, all that work, and there's no trace. There's nothing left other than pictures and memories. So
Well, what do you, how do
truly
you
is a
handle?
major operation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I've been backstage so many times and people have no clue. And the whole point of putting everything together is to make sure that when the audience comes in, they're going there to enjoy the full experience, leave with their memories, and not have to, have any hiccup in that experience. And of course, I know Neste Live works so hard to make sure that there are no hiccups. But with an outdoor festival, what happens if there's a weather issue or maybe there's a major issue where there's a cancellation? How do you handle all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the biggest thing, any event at this point in time, there's insurance, there's weather plans in place, your kind of operating procedures. But for me, I always look at it from the fan experience. And I'm like, communication is the biggest piece of it, right? It's like, okay, there's lightning and we have to clear the venue. Let's communicate that. And let's communicate that we'll let you know as soon as we can get you back in the venue. And that's the thing. I'm like, these people are spending their hard-earned money to go enjoy time, and it's always unfortunate. That's the hardest part of outdoor events. I vividly remember my first weather delay slash cancellation, and how just gut wrenching and like heartbreaking it is because it's also for the people working. You're like, you've put in so much work to this, and now the skies are opening up and there's rain coming down and there's lightning 27 miles away and we're watching to see how close it is before we have to make the call. But it's also the nature of the business. That's the risk anytime you have an outdoor event, whether it's a backyard birthday party or a festival for 25,000 people. So never something enjoyable to deal with, but truly I think that just messaging and how you relay the info to the patrons is just a big part of it. Because at the end of the day, they're there to enjoy the show. And I think you had mentioned like, what's my favorite part of these big
Yeah.
events? Like truly weirdly love a 20-hour workday because like when you're out there and you're going, like it flies by. But my favorite part is once the show is up and everything seems to be going well, to be able to kind of go stand side stage and look at the crowd and really just take a minute to observe the crowd and enjoy that moment where I realize they are a fan, just like I've been a fan of so many artists. And the moment I am witnessing is going to be a core memory of theirs. And I'm as corny as it is, I'm always like, my favorite part of the job is turning moments into memories because that's really what it's about. And I think I've had those times in my career where you lose sight of that and it's just a job and you get a little bit jaded. But when I can bring it back to that and like bring it back to being a fan and knowing just how important it is for you to be able to see an artist you've loved forever and now you're within 20 feet of them and they're singing your favorite song and you're there with your closest friends and you're having the best time of your life, that is a memory they are going to think back on for years and years to come. And I was a tiny little minuscule part of making that memory happen for them. And that is the biggest joy of the job for me.
Yeah, I mean, think about all of the people of all of the events that you helped put together, and then how many thousands of people it was the first time they had ever been to a music event. And it's always the first one we always remember. And who
Hmm.
knows, there may have been a little girl out in the crowd that now has the same dream you did, and who knows, 20 years from now she's going to be in the music industry working behind the scenes.
I hope she works for me. I hope I get to meet her.
I love that. Now, which of the music genres garnered the largest audiences for Neste Live?
Yeah, so for us, I feel like it's kind of a skewed perspective because we're based in Nashville, right? It's hard to not be in country music when you're based in Nashville. And then a lot of the festivals we work with or the fairs we work with are primarily country driven audiences. So I would say country is our largest genre, but since we work with such a wide range of clients, especially in the corporate and private events, what I love is that we really are not pigeonholed into country music. We get to work with all of the genres. Because if you think about a corporate event, their demographic is going to be a wide range of ages, people from all walks of life, and they're trying to find not only an artist that's, work appropriate, for lack of a better way of saying it, but someone that has mass appeal that even if you're not a huge fan, you're going to recognize their music. Like they've had songs in movies or songs in commercials, so you at least know who they are. And with that, we really kind of get to play in all the genres and find artists, whether it's rock or whether it's indie or R&B or bluegrass, and bring all of those to the table, which really is unique to what a lot of people in the industry do, where they really are kind of niched into a venue. But the world is our oyster. And I'm like, if it's music, we'll book it. That's the great thing. I'm like, I've booked acts that I'd never heard of before, and then I'm a fan because now I know of them. So
Yeah, and the great thing is we're never going to run out of songs, so it's almost like security.
absolutely.
Well,
The
I
arts
saw
are the arts are something people are always going to crave and want. So it's good for us.
that's it. Well, I saw that Nesty Live also handles sponsorship. Is this for music related events only, or does Nesty Live go beyond the music industry?
Yeah, so way back when Neste Live started, it was Neste Event Marketing and primarily was just doing event sponsorships for festivals and helping festivals find, corporate sponsors, local sponsors to come in and do activations at those events. And that eventually parlayed into adding in the talent buying because it all kind of goes together when you're working with all of these people. And now the talent buying really is our primary line of business, but we still have the event sponsorship component. And then we also have a marketing component. It is all focused on shows and music. But what we've found is, especially when we're working with clients who maybe don't have the network or the resources, or they're in a geographic location that you don't just have an ad agency around the corner like you do in Nashville, they a lot of times will just be kind of trying to figure out their marketing and their sponsorships on their own. And so, us having people that can guide them and offer expertise and also be that connector, like introduce them to people or help them with here's what your ad plan should look like. And we're able to offer those additional services so that our clients are not just getting great entertainment, but they're also being, guided through the process of here's how you can promote your venue and here's how you can get sponsorship for this event. So it is still a component of the business model, which I love because it really was what we were founded on. But it's a smaller portion than it used to be, but absolutely still a vital part of our business.
Well, what are some of the full circle moments that you have had in your career?
Oh man, full circle moments. Well, actually, I mentioned my first show being Charlie Pride at the Montana State Fair. So probably 2 or 3 weeks after I arrived in Nashville, my friends and I heard that there was going to be this show at Bridgestone Arena called All for the Hall. And it was a fundraiser for the Country Music Hall of Fame. And Keith Urban and Vince Gill kind of were heading it up and putting it on, and other artists were going to be there. And so we were like, I wonder if there's tickets. This is, I think, day of or day before. We go online, we find $20 tickets. So we're like, we're going. Let's go. This is going to be my first show in Nashville. We get into the arena, we find our seats. We're sitting there. Dolly Parton's performing. Keith Urban and Vince Gill have performed a little bit. And then I hear, now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Charlie Pride. And I go, what? My my first concert ever happens to be my first concert in Nashville, and I didn't even know. And I sat there watching him sing Kiss an Angel Good Morning, beaming ear to ear. There may have been tears streaming down my face if I remember it correctly, but it was truly that kind of nod from the universe of you're on the right track. You made the right move. You're supposed to be here. So that was a big full circle moment for me. So fast forward, I don't even know how many years until I started at Neste, probably 12, 13, 14 years. And I get here and I start kind of learning our clients, and we're going through, all of the different events we do. And I see that we have the Montana State Fair as a client. And I'm like, what are the odds that my fair growing up, that's, the reason I love music, the reason I wanted to do this, I make my way to Nashville. I work in this industry for 12, 15 years, and I end up at a company in Nashville that has the Montana State Fair as a client. That was another little full circle nod of confirmation. This is the right place for you. It's the right job. You're on the right path. So those two really stand out because I think for me, being so far away from home and so far away from the life I grew up in, anytime Montana shows up in my life in some weird, unexpected way, it's just that like my roots are still there and it's okay to spread your wings and fly because home is always there and I always find a way to go back to it. So it's very much a gift to be able to have those moments.
Oh, that is so cool. It just kind of reminds you that you're where you're supposed to be. And then that's really a double blessing, knowing that it was Charlie Pride and your first concert in
Yes.
Nashville. So that I just love stories like that. Now I know that by working in this industry, who are some of the major recording acts that you've met, and even though, but even working with them at the highest level because of their talent, and have you ever been starstruck?
So I have been very, very lucky to work with a lot of amazing acts over the years. And I do my very best to compartmentalize my inner fangirl and just be the consummate professional. But there has been a couple times where that fangirl has slipped out just slightly. But I mean, artists of note that I've worked with that kind of were just those like jaw-dropping moments of pinch me, is this real? Matchbox 20, who like I grew up listening to all through like middle school, high school, college, got to work with them and meet them, and they were wonderful. I worked with Shawn Mendes on like early in his career when he was really starting to gain attraction, and was actually our show was on his 18th birthday. So I'm convinced if I met him again, he would remember me because I could give him that context. But he was wonderful, all the way to Boys to Men, to Michael McDonald, to Kid Rock. I mean, the genres are wide. The level of caliber of talent is fantastic. But I would say the kind of starstruck moment. It was when I was working at Fontanelle, and Winona Judd and her husband wanted to come out and enjoy a show. So they weren't there for work. They were there to just come out, enjoy someone that they wanted to see. And so in my role, like I always, if we had a high level guest, I would make sure they got to their parking and got up to their seats and were taken care of. So I had greeted them, taken them up to their seats, and then I ran into my coworker who knows Winona very well. And I was like, Jamie, Winona and Cactus are here. Just wanted to let you know in case you want to go say hi to them. And she's like, absolutely. She goes, do you want to go meet her? And I was like, no, 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 no. Like I don't want to bother them. I'm working. They're here for fun. And Jamie goes, Annette, I know Winona is your favorite female country artist of all time. Would you like to meet her? And I go, okay, fine, but like I'm just gonna say hi in a working capacity. So we get up to their seats. Jamie says, why? Like they hug. It's like, Winona, this is Annette. She, helped you guys get your seats here. She works here. She would never in a million years say this, but she is a mega fan. She's loved you since she was a child. And I just wanted to make sure that she got to meet you because I know how much you love your fans too. And Winona's sitting there and she looks at me. She's like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. And she says, do you want a picture? And I go straight into work mode. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I could never, that's no. And she's wearing sunglasses. And this is ingrained in my brain. She lowers her sunglasses and looks up over him. And she goes, don't act like you don't want a picture with me. And I go, yes, ma'am, I would love a picture. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to bother you. And so she got up, she gave me a hug, we got a picture. And I was like, it was just that moment of this is why I love her because she could tell I was trying not to bother her. She has such a wonderful relationship with her fans and truly cares about her fans and loves them. That when I said no, she very much made it known she is Winona Judge and you will be getting a picture with her. And it made my whole summer that year. I was like, oh my gosh, I met Winona. My life has been made.
She
And
has,
then I reeled it back in after that.
but she has, but see, that proves something that I've always expected from Winona. She has a cool factor that a lot of female artists don't have because when she did that, she understood the fan experience. She understands that her fans, even when, the Judds were performing, both of them knew, because even Naomi told me they love their fans and they want to be there for them. They know they're there to make memories. And so for White to lower her sunglasses, that just shows me how cool she really is. And I love that story.
Absolutely. Yes, it was iconic. And I had an additional full circle moment with her a few years down the road while I'm managing one of these local regional bands. They were booked to play the governor's inauguration ball. They were like, the party band at the end of the inauguration. We're backstage. Well, in walks Winona, and she's doing a couple songs before the band goes on. And the drummer that's in our band used to work with her and knew her husband. Like her husband and him traded off as drummers on a church gig years ago. So they're all chatting. And I kind of, I was like, oh, we met years ago at Fontanelle. Like I'm trying to play it down. Hopefully she doesn't remember what a big fan I am. And the band goes out and she's kind of standing backstage and they're kind of like an R&B funky band. And she looks at me and she goes, do you think they'd let me go out on stage with them? And I looked at her and I go, you're Winona Judd. You can do whatever you want. And she goes, really? And I said, yeah. So she ends up going out, and I think we had like a 14-piece band out there, and she's just enjoying it. Well, the band then says, do you want to do one of your songs? And she's like, you guys don't know my songs. And they go, yeah, we do, because all of them have been playing in Nashville for 25 years. So of course they know her songs. So this 14-piece R&B funk cover band goes into no one else on earth, and Winona sings with them, and I'm on stage with my camera being the good little like manager, momager, making sure we're capturing the moment. And I was just like, never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be standing on a stage at the governor's inauguration watching Winona Judd sing with the band that I manage. What is this life? So she twice now has starstrucken me and left me with like the feeling of this is why I have loved you since the 90s. So those are my starstruck moments that I'll share today.
I love that, Annette. I love it, love it, love it. And it's those experiences that will never go away. They're memories. And the thing is I love, even after concerts, some of the performers, they don't mind hanging out with some of the fans. I mean, sometimes they don't mind stepping off the bus to sign a few more autographs before they leave. So there's always those magic moments for the fans. Now, for you,
Absolutely.
what does 2025 look like for you, Annette?
Yeah, so I mean it's interesting because at the end of every year I kind of go into the reflection and reevaluation mode. I know it's just the change of the calendar, but for some reason for me, I'm like, okay, it's a reset button, it's a fresh start. What worked well in 2024? What didn't work well? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? And I've really been thinking through that because 2024, I was very lucky to travel a lot this year to go to shows all over. And I think it's really easy for me to kind of get into that headspace of like, oh my gosh, okay, another trip, all these things. And it starts to feel like work because it is work. But when you work in something you're passionate about, I want to really focus on remembering why I got into this and slowing down in 25 so that when I am on site and maybe I have traveled a few weeks in a row, I'm able to kind of step back and say, okay, let's soak it in. Like, I'm getting to see a free show right now. In fact, I'm being paid to be here. That's pretty fantastic. And really just take the time to really enjoy those moments instead of just pushing through and getting the job done. So that's my goal for next year is to be present, slow down, find gratitude in those little moments, and honestly take my own advice. And hopefully, I'll have some moments that turn into memories. And it's while I'm getting paid to be there because that's really where the magic happens overall.
Yeah, I mean, we have to slow down enough to enjoy the journey.
Absolutely.
Because we both know what the entertainment business is like, and we can just go 110%, get the job done, do it, and then it's almost like you forgot what happened in between from beginning to
Yes.
end. But it
Hmm.
happens, it's life. But I'm like you, we have to slow down and start enjoying what we do, and that we have to be thankful that we're in industries that we absolutely love being in, and enjoying the people that are around us. And it's just what makes life better. So yeah, we got to slow down a bit. But ladies,
Yeah.
and
And
yeah, go ahead.
absolutely. For me, it's also that it's just that reminder that, like, I'm living the dream come true. And I lose sight of that sometimes. I'm like, this was the dream, in my tiny little town in Montana, in my bedroom with my headphones on, flipping through the jacket of a CD, dreaming about working with these musicians. The dream is coming true. And sometimes I can lose sight of that. So that's a challenge for myself to let myself have more of those pinch me moments and maybe let myself be a little more starstruck because it was a lot of years dreaming of it to get here, and we're not dreaming it anymore. We're doing it. So,
Yeah, I completely understand. Sometimes I end up with interviews with celebrities. You get the job done, and then it doesn't hit you till a day or two later, and it's like, I talked to them, So I know what you mean. Sometimes we got
absolutely.
to slow down enough to realize I did that, or I got to do that, and
Hmm.
enjoy every moment. But Annette, absolutely love the stories, and I know that for all of you, ladies and gentlemen, this is a kind of a behind the scenes for many of you, but some of you may need Neste Live's help, and they have a slogan. It's all about the experience, which reigns true to this day as Neste Live focus on unwavering integrity, personalized customer service, and commitment to producing first-class event experiences has established them as one of the top talent buying and event production and event sponsorship companies in North America. Now, the addition of full service marketing and promotion services and the depth of Live Nation resources rounds out their portfolio, making Neste Live the one-stop shop for clients. Now, if you need help in the areas of putting on a world-class event, regardless of the size of the venue, Neste Live is the place to go. And Annette, again, thank you for sharing the behind-the-scenes look at what Neste Live does and even sharing some of your personal stories with us today.
It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a joy.
Oh, now you make me want to go see Winona when she goes back on tour, because now I can remember the stories that you told about her, and I can just see the tilting of the glasses. That is so why. And for all,
Absolutely.
yeah, and for all of you, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.